to Minister Rania Al-Mashat. Rania, you have labeled the years 2021 as the years for multilateralism, and you also underlined that multilateralism is very, very important for the Middle East and North Africa. When you look at the UN now 75th anniversary, and as I mentioned earlier on, how do we make sure that the international organizations are more adaptive and also are able to be part of finding solutions when there are new challenges that we are faced with?
Well, thank you very much, Borge, and congratulations on the success of the Impact Summit. I attended it, of course, last year in New York and now virtually. And I think what is very different this year, and this leads into multilateralism, is that everybody has been tested. Many of the discussions that we have and have been going on over the past years have really come to the fore in a way that has affected citizens, countries, corporates, and each of the themes that were being floated globally, everybody has felt them one way or the other. The pandemic has shown that no one is in isolation, as you identified earlier, and therefore everybody has to be part of a collective solution. No country had the silver bullet. All of us had a chance to learn from each other. There have been, despite many of the shortcomings and pitfalls in handling certain things in the pandemic, there have also been a few successes. And these successes have given us confidence that some of the issues that we were worried about engaging in are actually what helped us in this very important test. And when I talk about international cooperation and multilateralism, I want to emphasize what we do here within the ministry, and that it pushes both bilateral and multilateral cooperation, and that is what I label economic diplomacy. And economic diplomacy for where I sit comes with three principles. The first is having multi-stakeholder platforms where our partners come, civil society is there, private sector is there, and I'll give you an example in a minute. The second is when we talk about official development assistance for development, how do we do the mapping between that and the SDGs that all of us want to succeed in fulfilling by 2030? And then the third point has to do with creating a global partnerships narrative, a narrative that empowers us and also engages everyone around the importance of what we can do in a multilateral framework. And let me give an example of successful multilateral platforms. I was in Luxor over the last weekend, and there we, in celebration of the 75th anniversary for the UN, and I was in a village called Al Baghdadi Village. It's a program that we have, Ministry of International Cooperation, Ministry of Agriculture, and the World Food Program, where there's a circular economy for small farmers. They have been able to consolidate land, use water effectively, create solar panels, so move from diesel to solar energy. This has been implemented in 60 villages. And now, because of the importance of food security agriculture, we're going to be scaling up to 500. So these are very important examples of where a multilateral institution with civil society, which is on the ground, can actually create real effective outcomes. And then this was provided as also example for South-South cooperation going forward. So these are, I feel that the protection gap that exists, the investment gap that exists, the digital gap that exists, create opportunities for us, as Professor Schwab has labeled it, the Great Reset. It's a reset for many things. So now we have, I believe, over the past few months, and a very important learning by doing mechanism. We have seen it in action. We have seen the importance of pushing forward an agenda where all of us are sitting together and very quickly trying to come up with solutions. We've been pushed to innovate. We've been pushed to be agile. And I believe And I was part of a session on the risk reset, that really having that integrated within the functions of a government or the functions of a corporate are definitely inevitable.
Shukran, Minister. Thank you for that. And as you referred to, Professor Klaus Schwab has also written a book, The Great Reset, that also will be the theme for our annual meeting that we have moved physically to spring next year. Before the pandemic, we also saw inequalities in the world, growing inequalities in the developed world, but also partly in the developing world. You referred, Minister, to the SDGs. If we don't get it right, we can maybe see hundreds of millions of people moving into extreme poverty this year. So we even further away from reaching the overall goal of the SDGs, eradicating all extreme poverty by 2030. So how do you address inequalities in your country, and what is your expectation now in the post-COVID world? Because I think we're all worried that we will see growing inequalities now, and especially in emerging economies where there's less fiscal space to launch stimulus packages like we see in the US and Europe.
Thank you, Borji. And I think that one of the themes that we have endorsed with the World Economic Forum and other countries through governments and private sector has been the stakeholder capitalism principles. And those are really efforts to try and make sure that we create more inclusive societies, that through better integration of innovation, better capitalization of the technology, so that we can push forward with more jobs for the youth. The Middle East has around 60% of its population at a young age, so that requires a very important focus on equipping them with the tools that can provide forward. Also, governance structures are very important. And then the concept of having more regional integration so that everyone's comparative advantage can be put together and then we can scale up. So absolutely. And that's why I started by saying there's a protection gap, meaning that the pushing through the fiscal space to continue with the protection or sort of widening the protection requires very strong cooperation going forward between all stakeholders, that's government, private sector and civil society. And these all are possible through very clear frameworks that, through governments creating the conducive environment and also encouraging private sector, which I believe has also played a very important role through this period and also has an important role going forward. So the issues and the challenges are there. However, I believe that the reforms that took place pre-COVID for us in Egypt have helped us through COVID, and the reform agenda continues. And this is something that has become very much within the focus and the vision of the government, collectively with all actors within society, and definitely with our partners in the international community, whether they are the bilateral or multilateral institutions that we very closely work with.
Also, Rania, you have Libya next door, so you're living this every day from Egypt side. And then I go to the big country at the end, India. And Minister, I give you the opportunity to sum up. That makes my job also easier. So Pekka and then Rania.
You know, it's the few proxy war examples that you chose happen to be all in the Middle East, and it's Egypt's destiny. It's Egypt's destiny that it's the biggest country in terms of population and has played pivotal roles over history. And when we look at the first priority for Egypt, we host more than 5 million migrants from Sudan, from Yemen, from Syria. And they live with us exactly like citizens. And that has been one of the key contributions that Egypt has been very keen on providing that environment. Also, trying to broker sometimes in the Libya case, there has been a very important, I wouldn't call them interventions, but diplomatic activities and efforts that have been streamlined with Europe as well to ensure that the Libyan people also have the right to choose and move in a direction which is conducive going forward. Maybe two things I want to conclude with. On the idea of competition, we are hosting the World Cup for handball. And on that occasion, I wrote a tweet where I was saying that multilateralism in its essence is just like sports. There's competition, but there's also complementarity. So this is really a theme that has shown and come to the forefront during the pandemic. And we need to capitalize on that because certain things have given us, and when I call us, I'm talking about a generation that looks forward and looks at creating consensus rather than conflict. So there is a very big opportunity going forward that I see and I feel. The second is you need to mobilize people around that opportunity. And that's why in our global partnerships narrative that we do with all our multilateral and bilateral friends and institutions around the world, we say people at the core, projects in action and purpose as the driver. And these really go in line with the ESG principles, which are planet, prosperity, people, and governance. So I think that we just need to keep on pushing the agenda. We need to have leaders who believe in it, showcase it, and there's, I believe, many important good examples to show so that successes can be scaled.